Hey all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. Apparently I don't have a voice today. Sorry about that. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. This is going to be mostly about some articles, and I'm going to get into some things that are going on regarding the Venezuela smuggler boat and some other reports. But I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with this news story that just came out a couple of days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, with regard to the U.S. military's blowing up the smuggler boat, the drug smuggler boat. This is just another thought here, okay?
Did the United States really destroy a Venezuelan drug boat, or was the explosion nothing more than artificial intelligence trickery? That's the burning question after a video of a U.S. military strike in the Caribbean went viral. The footage shows a missile slamming into a vessel, followed by a fiery blast. But Venezuela's government insists the video is not real at all, claiming it's AI-generated propaganda. Today, we break down what happened, what each side is saying, and why this single video has triggered a storm of international controversy. On September 2nd, 2025, the US Navy announced that one of its aircraft had carried out a precision strike in the southern Caribbean Sea. The target, Washington said, was a speedboat operated by the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. According to US officials, the vessel had departed Venezuela and was allegedly smuggling narcotics destined for markets in the Caribbean and potentially the United States. The result, 11 people were killed. The Pentagon released confirmation of the operation, and soon after, former President Donald Trump, who is once again campaigning and speaking frequently on foreign policy, posted the video footage on his social media platform, Truth Social. The video showed the boat speeding across open waters, then a missile streaking in and striking the vessel. Within seconds, flames and smoke filled the screen. For Washington, this was evidence of decisive action against transnational crime. But for Caracas, it was something else entirely, a fabricated piece of theater. From the American side, the narrative was clear. The US military had taken out a dangerous drug trafficking operation linked to Venezuela. Donald Trump, speaking to supporters, framed it as a strong warning. He said, "This is what happens to the narco-terrorists who think they can poison our people. The United States will not tolerate it." Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio added further weight. He argued that Tren de Aragua is not just a gang, it's a terrorist organization. Washington recently designated the group as such, opening the door for expanded military and financial measures against it. Rubio also pointed to the strike as a sign of US resolve, suggesting that this was part of a wider campaign to disrupt drug smuggling networks across the Caribbean. The US narrative is simple. A drug boat was destroyed, 11 traffickers are dead, and America is safer as a result. But in Caracas, the story took a very different turn. Venezuelan Communications Minister Freddy Ñañez went on Telegram to address the footage. He didn't just question its authenticity, he outright dismissed it as fake. His words were striking. The video looked, he said, almost like cartoonish animation, not a realistic depiction of an explosion. He suggested that the US had used artificial intelligence to generate the footage. President Nicolas Maduro echoed those doubts, calling the strike an act of aggression based on fabricated evidence. He warned that Venezuela would not be intimidated and accused Washington of spreading propaganda to justify a growing US naval buildup near his country's shores. For the Venezuelan government, the claim is simple. There was no real strike. Instead, Washington staged a spectacle to whip up international support against Venezuela and frame the country as a hub of narco-terrorism. To understand Venezuela's claim, we need to pause for a moment and ask, what exactly is a deep fake? A deep fake is a video, audio, or image created or manipulated using artificial intelligence. By training on thousands of real examples, AI systems can generate synthetic media that looks and sounds remarkably authentic. A deepfake can place words in a politician's mouth that they never spoke, or fabricate video evidence of events that never occurred. In recent years, deepfakes have become a major concern for governments, news organizations, and security agencies. They are no longer limited to celebrity face swaps or viral pranks. Deepfakes can now be weaponized in politics, warfare, and international relations. When Venezuela's communications minister called the US strike video cartoonish and likely AI generated, he was essentially accusing Washington of deploying disinformation technology at the highest level to fabricate an act of war. It is a serious accusation and one that reflects broader anxieties about truth, trust, and propaganda in the digital age. So, is the footage real or fake? At this stage, the evidence is inconclusive. On one hand, US officials insist the strike was authentic. The Pentagon confirmed the operation, and multiple American outlets, including the Associated Press, Reuters, and the Wall Street Journal, reported the story, citing defense officials. Independent journalists also noted that the video footage matched known US weapon systems and attack profiles. On the other hand, Venezuela's counterclaim is not without resonance. Ñañez described the video as almost cartoonish, raising questions about the smoothness of the blast animation, the absence of debris, and the lack of surrounding context. Some Venezuelan commentators argued that if such a strike truly happened, why has no physical evidence surfaced? Where are the wrecks, survivors, or satellite images? International media outlets like Reuters noted that they could not independently verify the authenticity of the footage. No third-party forensic experts have yet been able to analyze the file metadata. The truth lies in a fog of claims and counterclaims. Was it a genuine strike or a manufactured deepfake? Right now, the world has little more than Washington's word against Caracas's skepticism. Beyond the footage itself, this episode reveals deeper geopolitical tensions. The US has
Hold on, let me see if there's one little part more.
significantly increased its naval presence near Venezuela. Reports confirm a deployment of destroyers, amphibious ships, submarines, and more than 4,000 military personnel in the Caribbean. Officially, this is described as a counter-narcotics and anti-gang operation. For Venezuela, however, it looks like a looming threat of military intervention. President Nicolas Maduro has declared a state of maximum preparedness, mobilizing militias and urging citizens to brace for possible conflict. Meanwhile, the US has also escalated its diplomatic campaign, designating Tren de Aragua as a terrorist organization.
Okay. I've listened to reports on all this stuff about us bombing this this supposedly drug smugglers or drug dealer boat in in international waters, the way I understood it again in international waters. And we just went ahead and thought, okay, these are drug cartel smugglers or something, and we're just going to bomb them. I don't see how that's legal, and according to Judge Napolitano and other people that I watch, other analysts, it isn't. We're basically bombing, we're just basically murdering people that we think, or perhaps this was a stunt. We don't know, you know. It was a very interesting report, though, because I hadn't heard anything about this before. But there is a real issue with the deep fakes and the AI and the making everything look real, so that people can you know, this can be a real problem. As she said, I mean, they made good points when they said, well, where's the debris, where's the where's the bodies afterwards, things like that. You know, you always want to find the remnants of something from a bomb, and of being hit by a bomb, there are remnants usually of something, you know. And so it's kind of scary when you think about it, because if this is the future of like covert or just war, this is the way they're going to do it. Is they can easily put out an AI image, an AI video, whatever they want, and instigate, let's say, reasons to do a regime change. Okay, because I'm a little skeptical that their real reason for doing this is just to get drug cartel people. And this is not the way you go about doing it either. I don't agree with that. But let's think of the fact that this could be a front for regime change. It's not like it's the first time we've tried to change Venezuela's leader. We didn't like Hugo Chavez because he was nationalizing his own oil production and giving portions of the profits to his people, and God forbid anybody can have anything in another country that's helping their own people. They can't have a leader like that, so they wanted to get rid of him, but I don't think that actually worked. And then, when Maduro was in, remember last time Trump was in, we had that Juan Guaido, this made up like CIA cutout person that, as I remember, he went to school in the United States. And so he was just a puppet, as everybody knew. And right now, I think this whole issue with the drug smuggling boat and all that, it could be just another front to try to, a different avenue of trying to get rid of Maduro. So if countries start using AI for their reasons of preemptively striking somebody's country, they'll say, see, here's the evidence, this happened, whatever it is. Maybe they made up a fake video of, kind of like we do the Gulf of Tonkin, that was a false flag. Well, they can just use AI instead of actually having to have people actually do it, you see. So this is like a more effective and efficient way to do these false flags and terrible things when it comes to enmity against other countries. And you have your some of these countries have their goals to get resources or whatever it is. I don't think this is a good idea. Let's just say that. And I will say, I'll share Mahmoud's video, just this one portion, because even though let me just show you this. Find where he is. Okay. All right. So he's talking about well, I'll let him explain it, and then I want to stop at that one portion in here.
The movement, in a report that was published in one of the local media outlets, they said that they landed huge blows and there were losses in equipment and in people in that base. So who's telling the right story? Is the United States hiding something here? Was this a big attack or was it insignificant? Well,
so he's talking about that a group of extremists supposedly attacked one of our bases in Somalia. So this is what he's talking about in Africa.
There were certain images, again, these are not verified, but there were images circulating on social media showing the damage reportedly coming from that base.
Okay, so he's talking about that, and he's saying that the U.S. said there was no damage, and he'll say this in a minute, but I want you to look at that picture while he's talking.
This was one of these images. The United States is denying that there was any damage. The movement said that, no, actually, there was serious damage. And if that's the case, this is taking this American involvement and the attacks against the United States forces for the participation of the United States in this genocide and its complicity.
Yes. So what the report was is these extremists, they did this for Gaza, as it says in his title of his video here. So he's saying that this group that attacked the U.S. military base in Africa, they did it for Gaza. It's a a revenge strike on the U.S. base there for their complicity or whatever, and for Gaza, of what's going on in Gaza. Now, when you look at that picture that he says it's not confirmed, and now I will say that the U.S. did say that there was no damage, nobody was hurt, nothing happened at the base, apparently, they're saying, because I went ahead and looked this up afterwards to see if it was actually, if this was actually what happened. And so there was multiple news outlets that I googled that said this was not there wasn't anything going on with the base, that yes, there was an attempt to strike the base, but there was no damage is what the reporting is. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that picture, if we go back to look at it, maybe it's just me, but that doesn't look, it could be AI. It doesn't look real. If you just start studying things, you start wondering, with all the stuff that's going on with the deep fakes and all the other things that are out there. And there's so many of those, So I wanted to share that with you because this is a really concerning thing going on. If they're, if anybody's reporting and it's going to be like this, nobody's going to know anything. Nobody's going to know anything. If anything is real or if it's all fake, that's discerning that it's going to be tough, And so I will get more into this, not knowing the difference here in a minute. I want to show just a little bit of, let's see. Okay, so this came out a year ago. I'm just going to show this little beginning portion here.
Adorable puppy trying to navigate those windowsills in Italy. Or this woman strolling at night through downtown Tokyo. Or this, a street parade celebrating the Chinese Lunar New Year. None of these is real. They're 100% generated by an artificial intelligence program created by OpenAI called Sora. And they were created with a very simple text prompt. Just a sentence or two saying, make a video of a stylish woman dressed in black walking down a street in Tokyo. And these are the results. The implications of this technology, of being able to create extremely realistic looking video with nothing more than a few words of suggestion, is one of the more remarkable and potentially scary developments we've seen so far in artificial intelligence.
Okay, so this was interesting to me as well. Obviously, they've been talking about this for the past few years, but I've been kind of listening and kind of not, not totally following everything that was going on with that. But this is important, and what I'm going to share now is the way this is kind of a help to figure out the difference between a real and fake. I'm going to share that really quickly.
AI-generated images and videos are becoming convincingly real, but experts say there are still ways that we can try and spot the fakes. One of these photos is real. Can you spot which one? We'll let you know the answer at the end of the story.
Media literacy is super awesome, but it needs to extend to AI literacy.
Matt Groh is an assistant professor at Northwestern University. His team released a guide on how to spot AI-generated images.
What we've done is we've articulated 5 different categories of artifacts, implausibilities, ways to tell AI-generated image apart from a real photograph.
The first and easiest telltale signs, anatomical implausibilities. Ask yourself, are the fingers, eyes, and bodies a little off? Are there extra limbs or do they bend strangely? Second, stylistic implausibilities. Do images seem plastic, glossy, shiny, or cartoonish? Third, functional implausibilities. Is the text garbled? Is clothing strange? Are objects not physically correct, like how this backpack strap merges into clothing? Fourth, violation of physics. Are light and shadows casting a little doubt? Are there impossible reflections? And finally, socio-cultural implausibilities. Are there images that are just too unbelievable or historically inaccurate?
What we're trying to do is give you a snapshot of what it looks like in 2024. I think once we have a base, we're able to update it.
So can you guess which image is real? If you guess this image, you're correct.
It sucks that there's this misinformation in the world, but it's also possible to navigate this new problem.
Experts encourage the public to take the time to examine images before engaging with them. They also suggest that we all learn how to use AI generating tools so we know what they're capable of.
Okay. And I noticed that when she was talking about how to spot things, she mentioned cartoonish, which was mentioned in that first report that I showed you about Maduro believing that this was AI generated with the attack on that supposed drug smuggling boat. So with that information, I wanted to say that there's a portion in Ultimate Things, the book that I shared several days ago, this old book of mine that I've really gone through so much. I've read it several times, but I haven't read it recently because I don't like to dwell on Antichrist stuff. That's just not me. But I wanted to find, I remembered reading in here from years ago. I couldn't find it in here, but I remember reading it, that there would come a time, because this is about the last days, the Orthodox Christian perspective of the last days of Revelation. It's made into an easier way of understanding it through. Boy, I'm just losing my voice. A very easier way to understand Revelation through this book, because it's like you can see Orthodox perspective of the end times in a more easier layman's terms to understand. So what we're saying here is that in there it says at this time, like the last days in the era before the Antichrist, just like right before he appears, are a lot of things that happen. And one of them was in here said, you'll watch your TV or whatever, and you won't be able to tell if those images and those videos or whatever they're showing is actually real or false, like fake. And it just dawned on me when I was listening to these things. It came back to my mind. Oh, I remember reading that in Ultimate Things. And so I started to think, are we even closer than we thought on coming to the time of the appearance of the Antichrist? But as I know that we have that respite in between after World War III, and then this the spreading of the gospel and everything else, and then peace and all that, and then the Antichrist, which again was kind of an interesting thing, because I was thinking to myself, oh, if we had this was that peaceful time of finishing up getting the gospel spread throughout the world, and it's the Orthodox Christian interpretations and the correct way of as we see it of the of the gospel understanding of the readings of everything in the Bible. So that time period between post World War III and the Antichrist is the time when the this will be spread out. Everybody will be asking about Christ, and it'll be a time when orthodoxy will grow and spread throughout, even more throughout the world. And this is the time to strengthen the people, the faithful, so that they are prepared to have to, if because that generation would have to face the Antichrist. And that's basically what that's about. But I couldn't understand at first, how was it that we could have King John and everything's going well and everybody's in peace and harmony, and basically there's real brotherhood, sisterhood going on, and everything's great for a few decades, and then the next thing you know, there's this, everything's falling apart. And I would assume it's like because you get used to having everything going so well that you can forget about God. So there's this decadence, and there's this feeling like eventually people forget about God. Because I was like, how could this happen? But it came to me just before doing this video and researching some of this stuff and looking it up was, well, it could happen. But what I want to say before I say that is that a lot of these things that are happening now in our world seem to be going on. I mean, this is like the last days, spirit of the end times, but these are like the days before. So, the end times, like the days right before the Antichrist comes, or the presence of the Antichrist, this shows up. There's this stuff. It's said by Saint Nilus, a monk of Mount Athos. He anticipated this incredible development in the 19th century, because they're talking about how the new human order, crudely prefigured by Hitler and Mussolini, who envisioned humanity pathetically reduced and reconstructed, force fit into the brave new world. But the shape into which the nihilist will ultimately be remolded is the reverse of his native birthright. He was created in God's image, but is being reformed into the image of Satan, even now his natural appearance is mutating, as many children's humanoid, robotic, demonic toys suggest, into something subhuman. So St. Nilus says about this, in this incredible development in the 19th century, so the 1800s, he said the people of that time will be, and he's talking about of the time of the the last days before, or the time of the Antichrist, around that time. The people of that time will be unrecognizable when the time of the appearance of the Antichrist will be near. So it's not that he's there yet, will be near. People's reason will be darkened because of carnal sins, criminality, and impiety will increase more and more. The world will become unrecognizable. People's appearance will change, and it will be impossible to distinguish men from women because of the shamelessness of fashions and hairstyles. Well, when I first read this book, it was 1999. And I was just thinking, the difference between male and female? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there's the long hair that men have, and then women have short hair, and, that kind of stuff. I wasn't thinking anything about the trans thing, because that wasn't really going on. We didn't see that happening then. So I just found this interesting that when I read this in 2023, it really hit, because of everything that was going on in that time. Usually it is about 2015. It was really like, it came up towards the end of Obama's term, and then it returned under Biden. So I just found this very interesting. It says that St. Nilus is talking about this. He's prophesied about that. And so we'll go back to what I said about, how could it be that the the Antichrist would come about and people would be open to him. Things are going to be getting more difficult because, as I said, somehow after the reign of King John, then I would assume other people came in after him, and then there's a decline of morality and belief in God, and somehow apostasy comes about again, and as it always shows throughout history, people tend to, if you notice the Old Testament, there's these purgings where God has to fix things. So this will be the last time he's going to fix it, as I said, with the World War III thing. So I was thinking, okay, how could it be that all of a sudden people would be open to the Antichrist after being spiritually fed and learning about God and all that? Well, let's see, it came to my mind because I was thinking of King John, and then I thought about the Antichrist. Now let's just remember, according to St. John Maximovich, he says, fascinating, intelligent, kind, the Antichrist, will be merciful. He will, now this is the first half of his reign, when he's not revealing himself to be evil and terrible. He will act with mercy and goodness, but not for the sake of mercy and goodness, but for the strengthening of his authority. And when he will have strengthened it to the point where the whole world acknowledges him, then he will reveal his face. So, he's going to put on a good act, and he's going to develop a reputation as a phenomenal problem solver. His uncanny ability to anticipate outcomes and to propose solutions will seem prophetic and visionary to a world unaware of his secret manipulations, war, economic disturbance, social injustice, political instability, religious intolerance. No difficulty will escape his soothing touch. So that explains how that's going to happen. They're probably thinking, people might think at that time, oh, look, it's another King John, a good ruler, a good king, a good head leader to have. So anyway, I went on this little tangent thing because I had watched the thing on the report about the AI issue with the from Maduro, what he thought about this bombing, and then I gave you some information on that, and then of course it brought me to where I came on this, remembering this from reading this book about not seeing the difference, and how it's going to be hard to tell the difference. And now we see this happening now, that it's getting more and more difficult for people to see that difference, if it's a real image, if it's a real video or not. So that's what I wanted to go over with you. I hope it made sense. It wasn't a bunch of rambling. And yeah, so as you can see, it was about what's real and what's not in news media, and how it's become more difficult, how that falls into those last days, end times, before the appearance of the Antichrist. So that and you forget that you might be close to it, because you think, oh, our culture, our life, our world isn't that bad compared to what we see when the Antichrist is there. But I think we're swimming in our culture and so much, and living it so much, we're kind of unaware. We can't really see how bad these things are. So anyway, I just wanted to share that, my thoughts on that with you. Hopefully you found that interesting. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following my channel. I hope you have a blessed day, night, morning. Until next time.